You have a girl in front of you that you're interested in, but how do you let her know? How do you say it in a way that doesn't come off as too much, doesn't feel needy, that doesn't lead to you getting rejected? What usually happens, and I know this is a lot, is guys are too afraid to say anything. They might say you're cute at the start, or if they're on a date, they might compliment the girl about her dress, but then there's no intent anytime after that until you try to go for the number or you try to take her home. But by that stage, you're already friend zoned. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to actually show intent in the right way, in a way that doesn't come off as needy, it doesn't make you feel creepy, and it doesn't lead to rejection or even you worried about making that move. So let's start with, why should we actually show intent in the first place? Well, the thing is, women are bigger pussies than we are. They're not going to show intent if they're worried about getting rejected, because it comes with the biggest social cost. It's a lot easier for a guy to get rejected in society because it's somewhat more expected. If a girl was in a club to go up and approach a guy and be like, hey, I'm really into you, and by chance that guy was to be like, oh, no way, that girl will feel horrible, right? There's such a bigger social consequence to that. So girls, they're gonna protect their egos more than guys. They're not gonna show you any level of interest unless they know for a fact you're not gonna reject them and you actually like them too. So you have to initiate it. You have to get the ball rolling. You have to actually let this girl know you're into her. Otherwise, she'll never show it back and you'll be forever friend zone. There is literally no way you can have sex with this girl or date this girl if you don't show intent. So it is of utmost importance. Also, the act of showing intent conveys a level of confidence, because sure, the frame might be sexual. If you're in a club and you go up and start speaking to a girl, maybe she knows, all right, this guy's hitting on me. But there's a difference between knowing and actually conveying it. If you actually tell her in a very grounded, confident, not caring how she responds way, that is actually an angle to show confidence. And the more confidence you show, the more grounded you actually look, the more intent you can give to her, the more she's gonna think like, this guy's got balls. This is some big dick energy. This is a guy that I actually want to be around. But this also doesn't mean that you just go around showing intent all the fucking time and you're just super persistent and you're like, hey, did I mention 2 seconds ago that I really like you? Because this is where it can become creepy or supplicating, you actually lose value. So the difference here is showing intent with attraction is great. Showing intent without attraction is creepy. And you can probably see some perfect examples of this at the club. If you have a guy that is super awkward, he's a bit uncalibrated, he's average looking but really bad fashion, and he's like unkept. If he goes up to a girl and says something relatively normal, like, hey, I think you're really cute, girls most likely gonna reject the guy and be like, okay, he's a bit creepy. Yet, if you have a guy very well dressed, Chad, super muscular, walks in the club, maybe he's got some girls with him, he walks up to a girl and he's like, hey, nice titties, right? Awful way to show intent. But this girl's probably gonna be like, oh, the guy's so charming. Now, I'm using obviously exaggerated examples here, but the point is you only wanna be showing intent, and it's only gonna come off as natural and congruent to the girl when they're into you, when you actually have value in their eyes, when they're attracted. So you need to have attraction, but you also need to be careful about how much intent you're giving, because you can overdo it. You can come off as a little bit too excited, a little bit needy. And if something comes too easy for the girl, they're not going to appreciate the value in it. It's kind of like the idea of a job interview. If you rock up to a job interview and they're like, hey, by the way, you've got the job, don't worry about the interview, you're probably not going to value that job as highly. Whereas if you have to go through this rigorous process of like 4 interviews and you finally make it, they're like, all right, you've got the job. Now you're going to be like, fuck, I'm so happy. I love this job. You're going to put more effort into it. So that's also another drawback of giving too much. So really it comes down to finding the balance. And this is when we talk about edging. So you really want to give the girl a little bit of space. You want to show enough intent that she's willing to show intent back, that she's actually willing to invest into you, but not so much that it's like, fuck, this guy's a little bit needy. So you find that 80% mark, and it's going to matter how much attraction you have. So you need to kind of base it on this, and you need to flow with a little bit, but you want to give that 80%. So enough that she gives it back, but not so much that she's repulsed by it. And when you give that 80%, it gives her room to be able to chase. So how do we do that? How do we actually show intent the right way? So let's go through some principles. I want you to start thinking about when you show intent as a very entitled action as opposed to a needy one. So intent and the way to show it isn't built equally. There's going to be some ways that do come off as a little bit more supplicating. There's going to be some ways that come off as a little bit more subtle, that push her away. There's different ways to go about it. And it also depends on the context. If you're in a club and the music's pumping and you go up to a girl, she's going to assume you're hitting on her. Whereas if you're in an elevator and you're like, hey, what's the time? The context is different, so it's going to matter. And the same, if you're in an elevator and you step close to the girl and you have close proximity, she's gonna think, fuck, this guy's really into me. Whereas in a club, if you're close to a girl, it's like, whatever, we're all close. This is kind of where we're at. So the first step is starting to become more aware. How are your actions perceived by the girl? What level from 1 to 10 does she perceive as me liking her when I do these behaviors? All right, so let's start with some principles that will help you to show intent. So the first one is don't hide your dick. Go into these interactions knowing that you want to build sexual tension, that you want to actually change this dynamic from friendly and platonic to, yo, I like you. To do this, you're gonna have to get rid of that idea of fucking up. So when you go in, if you're so worried about this girl not liking you back, it's never gonna work. You have to just go in there thinking, I am an amazing guy. I have enough value. Eventually, when this girl gets to know me, she's gonna like me. So if you go in and you're like, hey, you're really fucking cute. She's like, oh, okay, thanks. Doesn't give much back. Don't get upset. Don't fucking get butthurt. Don't leave. Just think she just needs to know more about me first before I start showing more intent again. And when you have that level of confidence, when the girl sees that, yo, he's not bothered by me not giving him much, that in itself will actually build attraction. Don't supplicate. So if you're into the girl, tell you're into her, but don't pedestal her. Don't look up to her and think how amazing she is as you're telling her she's the love of your life. No, you're simply stating in some variation, which I'm going to show you in a second, that I'm into you and I see you as a sexual option. But don't start, oh my God, you're the greatest, you're the best. I can't believe you're talking to me. You're going to look like a pussy, you're going to lose all value and she's going to get rid of you pretty quickly. Don't overly prize frame. I notice some guys show intent. They try to protect the ego this way, where it's, hey, I'm kind of into you, but tell me 3 reasons why I should still talk to you. Again, we need to remember that if you prize frame too heavily, the girl's going to be worried that you might reject her. So you got to find that balance. When you prize frame too much, she's not going to invest back because she's worried that you're not actually into her. Don't break tension and soften it. If you're going to tell her you like her, you're going to show some intent, do it. Don't do this halfway bullshit. Oh yeah, I kind of like you. Or, yeah, I'm really into you and you're looking away. You're gonna say it and mean it. So now I'm gonna show you some techniques to show some intent on that scale of severity of, let's say, of like 1 to 10. So you're gonna start off by showing a little bit of intent and then work your way up to make it a little bit more, let's say, intense. So start with your subcoms. Stand a little bit closer to her. Hold eye contact. Smirk. Speak slower, lower tone. All these things are gonna show her that you're into her without actually having to say anything. And this can be the huge difference in an interaction. This is often sometimes stronger than even giving a compliment. Because sometimes I see guys be like, hey, you're cute, looking away. Feels like, what the fuck? Or, hey, look, I'm really curious. What's the time? Right, that is so much more sexual. It's such a way better frame. And this girl's gonna think you're a little bit more into it. So subcoms, super important. The next way is just through investment. Just investing more into this girl, whether you ask her what her name is, whether you ask to grab a drink with her. All these signs are ways to show that you're into her. Again, very subtle, but also, by the way, ways you can pick up from a girl. If you're having a conversation and all of a sudden she's like, hey, what's your name? It's a good sign. It's a sign that she's probably into you and wants you to hang around. Compliment. So this is the most obvious one. Let's say probably the most overused shit as well. And it usually involves, hey, I think you're cute. So this is great when done right. When you say a compliment, if you're listening as a third person, I want them to think, wow, he actually meant that compliment. Because the way I hear some guys say you're cute, like I'd be offended. Like if some guy came up to me and was like, hey, sorry, I just had to stop you. You have a really nice shirt. I'd be like, what the fuck are you playing at? Like, you don't like my shirt? Like, what are you saying? If you go up and say, hey, I think you're cute, like this, but there's no emotional impact from the girl. You want her to really think, oh, fuck. So instead, go up, hey, look, I just had to fucking tell you, you look so adorable. Honestly, you're like the cutest girl here today. That is a much better way to give a compliment. Mean it. Role plays. So again, another way to show some intent without it being so obvious to begin with. I used to use marriage role play quite a lot. So just ask a girl, like, what music do you listen to? She says something, I'm like, that's amazing. Hey, look, that's it. We have to get married. Now, maybe you can come up with something a little bit better than music choice and involve it in the conversation, but it's a great way to show intent. It's a little bit playful. It's fun. I used to get down and like fucking put rings on girls' fingers. And literally I had a girl send me a video. I've known her for 6 years now, seeing her on and off for 6 years. Sent me the video of the first night that I pulled her, where someone recorded me proposing to her. So it works great, especially in the beginner stages where you may be a little bit more worried about rejection. Now, in my sort of more advanced stage of game is I'm using subcoms a lot more, compliments, and this next point as well, which is sexual intention. So showing sexual intent, obviously a lot of people think about touch. Now again, intent is built differently. If you're touching a girl and like constantly doing this, yes, it's showing that you're into her, but it's gonna start coming off as a little bit too much. It doesn't actually build value. And if anything, it lowers tension a little bit. Remember, we want to edge. We want to have that 80%. We want the girl to be wondering a little bit. We want there to be mystery. If you're just constantly touching the girl, well, that mystery goes away. So instead, I want to verbally show a little bit of intent. And when I do this sexually, I like to push away a lot of the times when I'm doing this. So something like, hey, stop looking at me like that. Hey, honestly, you're driving me crazy. Like, I don't know what I'd do to you, but there's too many people around, so stop it. You can even build it up to just pure dirty talk. Look, if there weren't so many people here, this is exactly what I'd do to you. And just dirty talk sex. So obviously that's, more progressed in the interaction. You're gonna say this right at the fucking beginning. But if you do that, it's actually gonna build value. It's gonna turn her on. It's gonna make her horny. And it's gonna be very fucking clear that you're into her. And it's gonna allow her to reciprocate that. On that point of pushing away, you can also use these negative signs of intent. So tell her like, I fucking hate you. Now, under the right context, with the right subcoms, this again is gonna build the right frame. It's gonna show that you're not some friend. Right, a friend's not gonna say that. It's gonna be a little bit more sexual. So I'd be like, stop it. Hey, look, I fucking hate you. You can even role play in this. You can have some dom sub dynamic. Like, look, behave yourself or I'm putting you in timeout. No friend is gonna fucking say that. All right, my last point here on intent goes back to the idea of edging. Now, maybe you have so much value and this can be a problem sometimes, where the girl just thinks you're too good to be true. And she might think that she doesn't deserve you in a way, or rather what it really looks like is she thinks that she's just another girl, that you just want to take her home, sleep with her, and you're just another, tally on the bedpost. So sometimes you need to show some intent in a way that she'll believe. Because if you just say, no, I like you, she's like, no, that's what you'd say to every single girl. So the way you go about doing this is what I call like the qualifying compliment. And you start off by being very truthful but negative. So I will tell her, I'm like, look, can I be honest with you? She's like, yes. I'm like, look, yeah, it's true. Like when I first came up to you, I just thought you were hot, right? Or look, I came to hit on your friend. I was like chatting to them first, then you came over. Like I didn't really care about you. Like, to be honest, I know nothing fucking about you. Just some hot girl at the club. Yeah, you'd be fun to sleep with, but that's all it was. That's all it is. So you're very, very honest here. And you kind of push her away. You hit her with this. She might even be a little bit offended. But then you follow up. But look, let me be real with you for a second. Like when we were chatting, and be honest with you guys, like whatever it is that really turned you on about her, or that you really liked about her. Like, look, when we were chatting and I got to see this like very cute, like feminine side to you. It was really nice actually. Like it turned me on. I like that about you. But also even though you have this cute feminine side, you're also very confident and you can hold the conversation. You're interesting to be around, really. So yeah, you're right. Like I'm sometimes a bit of a fuckboy and I came over, you're cute, but there's actually a lot more I like about you. And if I was to take you home tonight, you'd be a girl I would want to see again. I would. So sometimes the intent doesn't just have to be like, I'm into you, I want to fuck you. Sometimes the intent has to be, I actually want to see you again. And you're actually, yes, not just a girl that I want to have sex with, if that's the case, obviously. So there it is, guys. So just to recap, intent is important. You want to build some value and attraction first before you show too much intent. Otherwise it will come off as creepy. And then you can scale it. Basically, the more attraction you have, show a little bit more intent. So it allows her to start showing it back and chasing. It's a very simple idea, but a very complex thing to be able to actually implement. I'm not gonna lie about that. So if you need some extra coaching, if you need some help and guidance about how to do this exactly, join our mastermind. You can jump in, give us some feedback you've got from going out and trying this and applying it. You can go through our lines in a lot more detail with a lot more advice and let us know how you go and we can give you some help around that. So you get 2 weeks free in our mastermind trial. So jump in, go out, let us know how you go with showing intent in a more calibrated way that builds value where you don't have to worry too much about getting rejected. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace, and I'll see you next week.